Hello, and welcome to Spicy Toast Gaming.
Thank you for tuning in to another Spicy Toast video. Today we're going to be taking a look at what Star 3 powers are the most needed. So the way this is going to work is at the top we're going to put the star powers that are the most needed, and then at the bottom we're going to put the ones that are the least needed. Now the way we are defining that is how much power does a champion actually get from that tier 3 power, and do they really need that extra power? So some weaker champions that might have a worse tier 3 power are still probably going to be ranked higher because they need that extra help, whereas some stronger champions that maybe get more of their power from their relics and don't really need their tier 3 power are going to be ranked lower on the list. So try to bear that in mind. It is a interesting tier list. This was actually suggested by a user that wanted to know what champions really needed to get their tier 3 powers and which ones are more fine without it. I hope you enjoyed the video. This took a lot longer to make than I was thinking it would be. So any support, liking, subscribing, sharing is greatly appreciated, and let's get into it. To start off, before we rank any of the champions, just want to let you know that I do have every single champion, and I have all the champions at 3 stars other than these 5, and I do have a good amount of levels on all of them. I believe Yumi here is my lowest at level 21, so everyone's higher than that. I have spent a good amount of time playing every single champion, played 3 stars on almost all of them, so while I'm sure that there's going to be many people, probably everyone will disagree with some elements of this list, I have actually played them all a good amount, just so that you know I'm not saying any of these things without any experience. We're going to start with alphabetical order, and I'm going to go with Annie. So Pyromania, rank 2, your spells and skills do 2 extra damage. That's her 3 star, it's just a doubling of the effect of the 1 star power. So just your 1 star is going to increase your spells and skills by 1. Playful Trick, your 2 star. That +1 starting mana and a round start create a fleeting Guile in hand. So 1 cost slow speed stun. Annie actually gets most of her power from her kit just by leveling up, getting more relics, increasing your starting deck with items, and then your 2-star power. This gives you a massive amount of control, especially when you've played Annie a good amount and you know how to utilize it to its fullest. So with all of your removal and then this amount of control, the enemy really can't do much against you. You have a lot of ways you can confront whatever the enemy does, and that doesn't involve your 3-star power. So for Annie, we're going to put her down in the D tier, as most of her power comes from other elements of her kit, and her 3-star power really isn't adding too much to your overall win condition. Taking a look at Ashe now, her 3-star is Frost Shot, round start, Frostbite the strongest enemy and give it vulnerable this round. The rank 1 version of this is if you have the attack token, Frostbite the strongest enemy and give it vulnerable this round. So very powerful being able to get this every single round happening. The 2-star, when an ally kills a unit with 0 power, grant your ally 1/1. Now the main power of Ashe is in her 1st or 3rd star power, not as much in the second one. The second one is a nice bonus, but it's not giving you nearly the amount of power as like Annie, who we just took a look at, that giving you a massive amount of control. This is giving you a nice little buff if you do attack someone with 0 power. But Ashe's core is that when enemies have 0 power, they can't block. So you're not even attacking them, you're just trying to go around them. Now there is times where you're still attacking them, so this does still give you a bonus, but the 2-star is really not where most of your power is coming from. Your power is coming from Ashe herself, getting your relics up, but being able to frostbite every single round. Ashe games go on normally a lot longer than most other champions. While you normally will be able to win by having a large amount of control with all your frostbites, The games do generally go on fairly long, but with Ashe, you do feel quite a bit weaker if you don't have your rank 3. Especially in the higher end matches, like against Galio or Aurelion Sol, you really need to have your 3-star power, getting that every single round, so both when you're attacking as well as when you're defending. Really helps level up Ashe quite fast, and you really are missing this when you don't have it. So this is one that I would actually put Ashe in the A tier, as her 3-star power does feel quite needed to really play Ashe to her fullest. It's not as much of just a small added bonus like it was with like Annie, who we just took a look at. It does feel much more required to really play Ashe as she was meant to be played. Next up, we have Bard. So his 2 or 3-star power, when you summon an ally with buff stats, grant it 2 random keywords. The rank 1 version of this is just granted 1 random keyword. And then Cosmic Presence, +1 starting mana. When you draw a card with chimes on it, plant a chime on a random card in your deck. Now, Bard is more of a scaling ramp deck. He can be quite slow, and while a lot of his power does come from more of his relics and champion levels, he is a bit weaker than most other champions, and so because of that, with your 3-star power, while it's not as much of an impact as many other champion powers, you really want all the help you can get on Bard, and so I would actually put Bard in the A tier as far as champions that you really need your 3rd power on. With Bard, you really want to get all the benefits you have with him if you're really wanting to take him into the toughest challenges. Up next, we have Darius. So his rank 3 star power, each round, the first time you summon an ally, granted 4 power and overwhelm. The rank 1 is just +2 power, and you don't get that overwhelm effect. His 2-star, each round, the first time you attack with 15 total power, you rally. Now, you do get a large amount of power from this, but you get a very large boost of power for your rank 3. And I think the rank 3 is very necessary for Darius. You want to be attacking. You are very much on the offensive. Most of your units are going to have a much larger attack pool than they have health. And so not having that overwhelm really hurts you. Quite often your units will have this massive power pool, but then when they attack, they'll just get blocked out by a cheap unit, and all of that power is going to go to waste. In my opinion, you really need this overwhelm to end games quickly with Darius. That's kind of the whole point of his kit. And so the 3rd power, I think, is a necessity, and that's why I'm giving Darius S for our tier list. Taking a look at Diana now. So her 3-star power, allies have Nightfall, grant me 2 power and quick attack. If I already have quick attack, grant me double attack. Now for the rank 1 version, it's just this first part of Nightfall, grant me 2 power. The rest of this isn't there in that rank 1 version. The 2-star, +1 starting mana. When you play your first card each round, refill 1 mana. The whole point of Diana's deck is Nightfall, so this 2-star, very nice for letting you not need to worry about losing mana with the first card you play. It's going to refill it, and even if your base mana is full, it'll then go and give you 1 spell mana if you played something that cost 0. Now Diana's 3-star, very powerful. It's more than a doubling effect like many 3-star powers are. Double attack is very strong for Diana herself. This is what really enables you to end the game in quite often a single turn near the end of an adventure, because Diana just gets so powerful. That being said though, Diana actually works quite well just on her 1 and 2-star powers. So you're still going to be able to end the game very quickly. She still plays the way she normally would like. So even though this gives you a large amount of power, because Diana is already so powerful, we're actually just going to put her in the B tier. You're normally still able to clear pretty much any adventure without the 3-star power, and even though it's very strong, still just going to put her in the B tier just because of how strong her base champion already is, and how the 3-star power really isn't as needed. Up next, we have Evelyn. So Evelyn's 1-star power, when you level up an ally champion, grant allies everywhere 1/1. The 3-star is just doubling this, giving allies everywhere 2/2. The 2-star power is +1 starting mana. The first time you kill a follower each round, create a fleeting copy of it in hand. Now, this is one of the few champions I don't have at 3 stars, but in my opinion, the main power of Evelyn actually just comes from champion level ups. So Evelyn herself, the multiple level up mechanic works incredibly well with certain relics where they trigger every time your champion levels up. Most champions can only benefit from that once. Evelyn can benefit from that up to up to 6 times. So most of your power just comes from getting Evelyn stronger, getting those rare relic slots, as well as all the bonuses to your other units by leveling up. So because of most of the power coming not from your star powers themselves, like they're definitely very, very strong, but with most of it coming from champion level ups, I'm actually going to put Evelyn in the F tier. Now, Evelyn herself, I have cleared all content in the game with her, including Aurelion Soul, just on the 2-star, which is why I think you really don't need the 3-star on Evelyn. Definitely let me know if you disagree with this choice down below, but for me, Evelyn is powerful enough that she doesn't need her 3-star power, and she is in the F tier. Now taking a look at Garen. So Garen, again, one of the few champions I don't have at 3 stars. His 1-star, when an ally strikes, granted 1/1, and the 3-star version of this is just giving you 2/2 when an ally strikes. So just a simple doubling effect. The 2-star +1 starting mana, round start, create a fleeting single combat in hand. So here an ally and an enemy strike each other. So this is giving you good removal every single round, as well as getting a strike off. So helping you with your other star powers and giving you a good amount of power itself. Now Garen, I think he is incredibly strong as well as very easy to use. You get a massive amount of power, again, just from leveling up your champion and getting those 3 relic slots. So he's scaling much more based off that. The 3-star power with it just being the additional 1/1, I don't think it's really as necessary. It will help you win faster and win more, but I don't think Garen really needs it at all. I think he's more than strong enough just with the 2 stars. So Garen, another champion that I just think is so powerful based on his first 2 stars that he doesn't need his 3rd one. So he'll be another one going into the F tier. Taking a look at Gnar now. Again, we have him at 2 stars. I only have 5 champions that aren't at 3 stars. We just happen to having a lot of them back to back. So your 1st star power, round end, if you've damaged the enemy nexus this round, grant your allies impact. Your 3-star would be grant your allies impact twice, still with the modifier of if you've damaged the enemy nexus. This would be very powerful, doubling the effect of just giving your whole board impact. Really be helpful. You want to be able to end the game pretty quickly on Gnar. So doubling the amount of impact you can give to an entire board is actually going to have a pretty major effect. Your 2-star, before we get any further, +1 starting mana, round start, create a wallop in hand. If you already have one, reduce its cost by 1. So wallop, 3 cost, fast, deal 1 to an enemy and stun it. This is actually very nice. Annie, her stun that she's generating is slow speed. So you have to be very proactive with it and use it before the enemy tries to use a spell of their own or attacks. With Gnar, you can actually be more reactive and see how the enemy's attacking and then use this in response to that. Or the same with them trying to use a spell. You can kind of counterspell them by placing this after and either killing their unit or stunning it, stopping them from doing whatever they were trying to do. So very powerful. Gnar himself, though, I feel is a bit weak in comparison to a lot of other champions, and I feel like you're really going to need your 3-star power to really try to be on the same footing as many of the other champions. So for that, I think Gnar is going to be in the A tier as far as needing his 3-star power. Next up, we have Gwen. So Snippets of Song is your 1 and 3-star power. Round start, summon a Ghastly Band. If you just have the 1-star version of this, it's if you don't have the attack token. So when you're on the defensive, summon a Ghastly Band. So that is this 1-cost 2/1 with Hallowed. So after I die for the rest of the game, when your allies attack, Hallow the first attacker, giving it +1 power that round. This is what her whole deck is based on. Having your units die. When they die, they're given this stacking buff, and then Gwen's able to use that to win the game. Needlework, +1 starting mana. When your leftmost attacker gains power from Hallowed, so does the attacker on its right. So again, scaling with the Ghastly Band. Now Gwen, I think, is one of the most powerful champions and best champions in Path of Champions. Her deck, I think, is made better than anyone else. Some champions tend to outshine her just because they're able to end the game before Gwen can even be played. That being like Diana and Jax. But Gwen herself, I feel like, is just stronger than anyone and has more options than anyone else. And really does just have a deck where there's no dead cards. There's nothing you really want to get rid of. Everything works well together. So Gwen, I've actually pretty much beaten all the content and had her for a very long time just on 2 stars, and she was still incredibly powerful. I really don't think you need your 3-star to do well with her. She really handles everything perfectly fine just with her 2-star. The 3-star is more of a win more. You're able to do more damage to the enemy nexus, but really, even without that, you're just going to be playing Gwen at 4 mana and then ending the game as soon as you attack. And that's going to happen even at your 2-star power. You're really not needing the extra 3-star. Especially she's getting a lot of her power just from levels and getting those relics. So Gwen is another champion I'm actually going to put in the F tier because I feel like she is just so good. She doesn't need the 3-star at all, really. It's just a bit of a bonus. Taking a look now at Allowi. So your 3-star, when allies attack, spawn 3. The 1-rank version of this is when allies attack, spawn 1. Your 2-star, Test of Spirit, +1 starting mana, round start, grant the weakest enemy vulnerable. So Allowi's whole kit is built around spawning, which every time you spawn, you summon a 1/1 tentacle. If you have one, then you grant it 1/1 instead. So every round you're working on building this up, and then you play Allowi on 4, she attacks and ends the game. The 3-star is quite nice. It's nice that it's more than just a doubling effect, which a lot of star powers are, because you're getting 3 spawn instead of just 2. This really speeds up your game plan. It helps you win almost every time when you play Allowi on turn 4. Next time you attack, you're able to win. Allowi does still get a large amount of power just from leveling up and getting those extra relics. So the 3-star is very nice for Allowi, not as needed, as she's still very strong and will normally win, but not having the 3-star is going to delay your win by a couple rounds, or probably 1. So having the 3, while it's not necessary for winning your games, it is still pretty needed. So we're going to put Allowi in the B tier. Up next, we have Jax. So his 3-star power, allies have attack, grant me 1/1. If I'm equipped, also grant my equipment 2 power. Now the 1-rank version of this is allies have attack, grant me 1 power. If I'm equipped, also grant my equipment 1 power. Your 2-star, Relentless Assault, +1 starting mana. When an equipped ally dies, draw 1. Now, Jax is very powerful. on his own and scales very well with just level ups, increasing his units, as well as getting more relics. The 3-star does give you a good amount of power and really unlocks the OTK level of Jax, being able to really win within a single round or sometimes a second round. Normally without it though, you're still going to be ending games very quickly. So Jax is kind of in the tier where without the star power, he can still end pretty much or win the game fairly easily, but that 3-star power is giving him a very large boost. And so we're actually going to put Jax in the C tier, where you are really fine without it, but it does help you out a good amount if you are able to grab it, but really not as necessary as most other champions. Up next, we have Jhin. So his 3-star power, for every 4th fast spell, slow spell, or skill you play, create a 0-cost captive audience in hand. The 2-star, +1 starting mana, when ally plays a skill, grant them 1/1. If you just have the rank 1 version of your Beauty and Death, the captive audience now costs 2, which is its normal cost, and it's a fast speed, deal 3 to an enemy, or stun an enemy. So it gives you a massive amount of removal and control. Scales very well with Jhin because it feeds back into itself of counting as another spell for you to play. You're really able to have the full playstyle of Jhin though, just with his first 2 star powers. You do get a very nice boost in power, but it feels more like a quality of life boost than something you actually really need. So Jhin actually does very well just with the 2. You can still clear pretty much all the content with that, and you never really feel like you need your 3-star. So really not as necessary as most other champions, but you do get a pretty good sizable power spike with that 3-star. So Jin's actually going to go and join Jax in the C tier. Next we do have Jinx. So for the 3-star, what's the worst that could happen? When you play or discard a card, deal 1 to the enemy nexus and 1 to a random enemy. The rank 1 version of this doesn't have the deal 1 to a random enemy, you're only dealing damage to the nexus. Wreak Havoc, the 2-star, when you level up a champion, create a super mega death rocket in hand. That here, 1 cost, deal 4 to enemy nexus, and 1 to all enemies. This is also the spell Jinx creates when she levels up. So, very powerful star power, not only letting you be an aggro deck destroying the enemy nexus, it also lets you kill many enemy targets. Many parts in the game, especially through those early rounds, you can just kill whatever the opponent plays. You can often hold back your cards, wait for them to play something, and then immediately kill it just by playing your own units. So this really puts Jinx on that crazy powerful level. And while she still could win most matches without this, this just makes it so much easier because all you have to do is play your cards and you're not only destroying the Nexus, but also killing the units in addition to whatever the card effect actually is. So because of the amount of power in this, we're actually going to put Jinx in the B tier, even though she's very powerful herself and can win most matches without issue. Next, let's take a look at Kaiser. So first we have from Predator to Prey, round start, grant your strongest ally a random positive keyword. The rank 1 version of this is when you get the attack token, grant your strongest ally a random positive keyword. Void touched, +1 starting mana, allies with 3+ positive keywords have 2/2. So the whole point of Kaiser is you're trying to get 6 unique positive keywords on your units so that your units can evolve. When they evolve, they get an additional 2/2. So getting keywords is very important. Kaiser herself doesn't have the best made deck. Her removal is pretty weak. It just got a buff, so now if you're evolved, it can target other units. Let's go take a look at it. So Void Seeker, Once you get a bit higher, you do get that charging sigil. So deal 1 to a follower. If you're evolved, deal 3 to a unit. So this goes up to 3 and 5 damage. It is slow, not the best. You have to be evolved to be able to target a unit instead of a follower. So for the early part of the game, you're not even going to be able to use this on like champions. Quite often you'll be going up against like a Zoe, they'll play her, you immediately want to kill it. If you're not evolved, you're not even able to do that. And if you look at the deck, you really don't have any ways to protect your units other than trying to get spell shield on them, but you don't have any spells to actually protect yourself. So while Kaiser is very fun to play and can feel quite powerful, sometimes you just don't feel like you have the right amount of options, so you really need to focus on your core playstyle of getting your keywords. Because of that, I feel like the rank 3 version of granting your strongest ally a positive keyword is quite necessary on Kaiser. It really helps increase your ramp, get your units evolved, give them those extra stats, and then when Kaiser comes on the board, she's already evolved and can end the game shortly thereafter. With how necessary I feel like this is for her deck, I'm actually going to put Kaiser in the A tier because I think the 3-star power for her is that necessary. Up next, let's look at Kane. So your 3-star, when an allied unit kills another unit, give that ally 2/2 and heal it to full. Now, if you just have a 1-star unit or a 1-star power, it's giving you 1/1 and healing you by 2. So it's more of a doubling effect, not just 2/2 and heal you by 4, but actually heal you to full, which is quite nice because your units will scale up to have very large health pools where you're really going to need them to heal all the way back up. Now this does say give. In Runeterra, normally give means it's for that round, and grant means it's permanent. Here this should say grant, as it is a permanent buff. So somewhat similar to like Garen, but with Garen you just have to strike. With Kane you actually have to kill the unit. Your 2-star, each game, the first time an ally kills an enemy and survives, create a random Darkin equipment in hand. It costs 2 less. So again, focusing on killing a unit and surviving. Your 3-star power, I think, is quite necessary for Kane. A lot of your units are relatively weak to start out, especially compared to units in the tougher matches, like against Galio or Aurelion Sol. So you really need them to scale up as fast as possible and as strongly as possible. So I feel like the 3-star is actually quite necessary. And because of that, we're actually going to put Kane in the A tier. On to Lee Sin now. So he is another one I just have at 2 stars. Extend your senses. This is your 2-star. Round start, create a fleeting twin disciplines in hand. So that's give an ally 2 power or 2 health this round. Your 1-star, when you play your second spell in a round, give your strongest ally 4/4 this round. The 3-star would get this 8/8. Now, Lee Sin, your 3-star power, I find that it's often going to be wasted, so it's just giving you the stats. It's not actually giving you like overwhelm or anything to really be able to make sure that you're using those stats to your fullest. Even with the 4/4, quite often it's overkill because it's already going on your strongest unit. And so if they're blocking, they already are going to have more than enough health to deal with it. So doubling this effect isn't really going to have much benefit. And then when you're attacking, unless this is on Lee Sin himself, then again, most of those stats are going to go to waste because the unit is just going to get blocked out. So really not as necessary as most other units. That being said, I do find Lee Sin is a bit on the weaker side, so any additional help can be quite nice, especially on those occasions where you have a unit that's not going to get blocked out, especially in the start of the game, and the additional 4 damage there could be quite helpful. So while I think this is a weaker star power or 3rd rank than a lot of others, I do feel like Lee Sin does need all the help he can get, so we're going to put this in the B tier. Up next we have Leona. So her 3-star power, allies have Daybreak, or when you activate another Daybreak, grant me 1/1. Your 1-star version of this just has the first effect of allies have Daybreak, grant me 1/1. So you're only going to get the benefit of that really once. Your 2-star Piety's Reward, +1 starting mana. When you level up an ally champion, create a Morning Light in hand. It costs 0. So Morning Light, slow speed, it's going to be 0 if you're generating it from your 2-star. Give allies 1/1 this round. Activate an ally's Daybreak effect. Now the way Leona works, let's just briefly take a look at her card. So Daybreak, stun the strongest enemy, but when she levels up, when you activate another Daybreak, stun the strongest enemy. And give her barrier, but that doesn't really matter as much. The Morning Light is her champion spell, and it is activating another Daybreak effect, which is going to trigger a stun from Leona. Now you're going to be wanting to have your Sunhawk on the board, and its effect is stun the strongest enemy. So because of this, with your Morning Light, you target this with the Sunhawk. That activates the effect. The Sunhawk stuns an enemy. Leona then stuns another enemy, and you're going to have multiple of these because they're Leona's champion spell. Because of this, it's a very combo deck where a lot of your power comes from consistently stunning enemies, and you can stun the entire enemy board round after round once you're comfortable and familiar with Leona. Because of all of that, your 3-star power, while it gives you a lot of stats, really isn't as necessary. And once you have her 2-star, you're able to just go into adventures way earlier than almost any other champion and come out on top because you just have this massive amount of control, stunning the enemy every single round so that they can't attack you, and then when you attack, they cannot block. Because of this, Leona really doesn't need her 3-star power. It's very nice to have and gives you a very large power boost. It's much more than just a doubling effect as most 3-stars. So very nice to have, but really not as needed. Because of that, we're going to put Leona in the C tier. Up next, we have Lux. Her 3-star is each round the first time you play a spell, refill mana equal to its cost. Now, if you just have the rank 1 version of this, it's refill spell mana equal to its cost. So you're capped at getting 3 mana back from this. So your 3-star is essentially more of a doubling effect, so you can play very expensive spells and get all of the mana back you spent on it, which is quite nice. Your 2-star, when you play a 6+ mana of spells, create a 0-cost golden Aegis in hand. So give an ally barrier this round, rally. These are not fleeting, so you can stack multiple, and this is mana of spells, so not a 6+ spell itself. This can be from multiple spells. Lux is very much a combo deck. You get to your mid game, you play several spells. Usually you try to play a very expensive spell, so you need as much mana back as possible with Lighting the Way. You're stacking a couple golden Aegis, you build out your board, and then you just attack and rally over and over again to end the game at about 5 mana. Or that round. So, very powerful. It's quite helpful to have. Lux is still able to win pretty easily with just her 2-star power, but your 3-star is giving you more than a doubling effect, often helping you win a round or two earlier, since you have access to more mana coming back from your spells. It really helps out just your early game feel a lot better. Because of Lux's power, though, and how she doesn't need it quite as much, she's just going to be sitting in the B tier. So, very nice to have that 3rd one, but Lux really doesn't need it as much as some other champions. Next, let's take a look at Master Yi. So, Body and Mind rank 2. When you play a non-fleeting spell, create a 1-cost fleeting Twin Disciplines in hand. So this is the same spell as Lee Sin uses, but now it only costs 1, but you have to play a non-fleeting spell first. Now, round start flow, grant me 1/1. This bottom effect here is the 3-star aspect. If you just have the 1-star, you just have this top part right up here. So the 3-star, the flow, granting an allies 1/1. This is going to be buffing up your board, and while it's nice, it really just feels like a bonus. It doesn't really feel like you need it for your kit. Your 2-star round start flow, give your strongest ally elusive this round. So normally you're just going to be using, especially once you get higher level, Master Yi. He's already scaling and granting all copies of himself 2 power if you do flow. So the 1/1, really just a bit of a bonus, but not needed really at all. Most of your power is not coming from that. It's coming from playing your spells, just getting your flow effect off, and Lee Sin stacking up himself with all of your spells that you can be casting every round to buff up your units. So really not needed, and most of your power is coming just from leveling him up and getting him more relics. So because of that, he's actually going to go in the D tier. Up next we have Misfortune. So 3-star, nothing but powder monkeys. Round start, summon a powder monkey. If you just have the 1-cost or 1-star version of this, it's when you have the attack token, summon a powder monkey. Most wanted, when allies attack, draw a unit. So you're always going to be able to attack because you're always going to have a powder monkey when you get the attack token. Now you really just need the 1-star version of this. Misfortune is quite strong all on her own, just with champion levels, your deck, and just your first 2-star powers. So the 3-star is a nice bonus. It does help you chip down the enemy nexus. The powder monkeys, if you don't know, 1-cost ephemeral, 2/1, last breath, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. Because this is ephemeral, it's always going to die at the end of the round, and so it's always going to be dealing 1 to the enemy nexus. So it is nice to have, does give you a good amount of power, but the 3-star really not needed as some other champions. So we're going to put Misfortune in the B tier. Up next we have Ornn. So your 3-star, game start, summon a Ornn's Forge. The first time you forge each round, forge again. So this second part of the first time you forge each round, forge again, that is the 3-star. The first part is the 1-star. So the Ornn's Forge, it summons this landmark, which when I'm summoned a round start, create a fleeting time and dedication in hand. So it's making this 1-cost focus, forge an ally. Forge, grant an ally 1/1. If they're equipped, grant it to their item instead. Your 2-star power, the first time you play an ally or equipment that costs 4 or more, manifest an equipment and reduce its cost by 2. Now, your 3-star power is really, it's helpful, but it's not as good as many other star powers. It is sad it has this limitation of the first time you forge each round, forge again. So only the first time in a round, which seems like a needless limitation. Some of the champions we're going to get into soon, like Varus, his 3-star is every time you cast a spell, just essentially double its effect. We'll get into the specifics later, but it doesn't have that limitation on it. So the fact that you're limited by only the first time each round when this is your 3-star power is a bit weaker, but Ornn himself is a bit of a weaker deck, and so even though your star power isn't as good as many others, because your champion as a whole is a lot weaker and slower than most other champions, and you need all the help you can get, we're going to put this in the S tier as very much needed, but that's mostly just because Ornn himself needs all the help he can get to win against some of the tougher opponents. Next up, we have Tahm Kench. So your 3-star, when an ally survives damage, grant it 2/2. The 1-star is just granted 1/1. Long-term contract, your 2-star, +1 starting mana. When you capture a unit, create a copy of it in hand. It costs 1 less. So with Tahm Kench, you're really having the same playstyle with just your first 2 star powers. The 3rd star power is nice, gives you a good amount of power, but really not too needed. So with that, we're going to put Tahm Kench in the C tier, as it's not as needed, but it is a nice boost for power. Next up, we have Talia. So your 3-star, game start, summon a hibernating rock bear. Allies have 1/1 and overwhelm. So your 1-star version of this is just game start, summon a hibernating rock bear. So this landmark, which will count down and summon the grumpy rock bear. Your 2-star recycled stone, +1 starting mana. When an allied landmark is destroyed, grant allies 1 power. So your 3-star is actually very, very nice. Allies have 1/1 and overwhelm, so just your entire deck, any unit you have is just going to get a flat 1/1 bonus. You don't have to do anything to get that. They're just all going to have that, and they're also all going to have overwhelm, so you don't need to worry about picking that up with a relic or a power. Just all of your units are going to have this. Now, this is very, very powerful, incredibly nice, and quite needed for Talia. Quite often, without this, your units are just going to get blocked out, and the game is going to stall for a very long time because you don't have any other way of getting through to hit the enemy nexus. So you're just always going to have this problem of the game dragging on too long because the enemy just keeps summoning units, they block with their much smaller units, and then they proceed to outscale you. So in my opinion, this is 100% needed and necessary as bonus stats, and then just overwhelm all of your units. You're able to dramatically increase your win speed, and quite often win around the 5 mana mark, similar to Lux, because of this star power. So this is so needed that I'm putting Talia in the S tier. I think this is one of the champions you definitely need to get your 3-star power on. Up next, we have Teemo. So it's 3-star. When allies attack, plant 10 poison puff caps on random cards in the enemy deck. The rank 1 version of this is plant 5 puff caps when allies attack. Your 2-star, when your opponent draws a card with 1 or more poison puff caps on it, create a fleeting poison dart in hand. It is burst speed. So that is right here. Deal 1 to anything, plant 3 puff caps on random cards in the enemy deck. And then this being at burst speed really helps you remove threats without them being able to respond. You can also use this to target the enemy nexus. Now, Teemo himself is incredibly powerful, but most of his power comes from just leveling him up and giving him relics, especially rare relics. So because almost all of his power is really coming from that and not from your star powers, the rank 3 is really not necessary at all. If you have a 25 to 30 level Teemo, the 2 and 3-star powers, the difference between your power level is going to be barely detectable, really. So because I think it's so not necessary, I'm putting Teemo in the F tier as far as his 3-star power, as you really don't need it at all. If you get the shards for it, great. It's a nice little bonus, but really not needed in my opinion. Let's take a look at Varus next. So your 3-star power, when you target an ally with a single target spell, copy it on your strongest ally. The 1-star version of this is the first time each round you target an ally with a single target spell, copy it on your strongest. So again, this was kind of the difference we were talking about with Ornn, how with him, his 3-star power is limited to just once a round, whereas that's essentially Varus's 1-star power. Your 2nd star, 2-star, +1 starting mana, round start, reduce the cost of a spell in your deck by 1, then create a exact fleeting copy of it in hand. Now, Varus is incredibly strong with just his 1 and 2-star powers, and he is more than strong enough than clearing all the content in the game. Your 3-star is a bit overkill. It can be quite nice to have, but normally, especially in the early game, you're only going to be able to play 1 spell targeting an ally anyways. So yeah, the 3-star is generally overkill, and even though it can be quite powerful, normally you're really not utilizing it over the 1-star until more of the later game, which you're probably ending the game before then with Varus anyways. So because he's so powerful and really doesn't need it as much, we're going to go and put Varus in the D tier. He's not quite as strong without it, or it's not quite as unnecessary as some of those in the F tier, but it is pretty close to being really not needed. Vayne is up next, so your 3-star. If you have the attack token and fewer than 2 equipment in hand, create a golden spatula, grant it a random keyword. So your 1st-star power is the exact same, you just don't get the random keyword on your golden spatula. Your 2-star, when an ally is equipped, give it scout this round. So with Vayne, most of your power is just coming from your 1 and your 2-star. The 3-star is a nice bonus to have, and it occasionally can help out quite well if you happen to get the right keyword on it, but really you don't need it very much. It's nice to have, can help you against some of the tougher opponents, but it's already pretty RNG, and really just having a golden spatula generated and then having scout when you're equipped is good enough for Vayne. So we're going to put her in the C tier, as she's perfectly fine without it, but it is a nice bonus to have if you do happen to have your 3-star. Up next is Vargar. Round start, create a darkness in hand. It costs 0, so that's your 3-star. If you just have the 1-star, it's create a darkness in hand or reduce its cost by 1 if you already have one. Your 2-star, your darkness accelerates to burst. So you are quite powerful with just your 1 and 2-star, but as you're going up against some of the tougher opponents like Galio and Aurelion Sol, you are really going to need that 3-star. It is actually quite necessary to be able to just create a 0-cost darkness in hand. It's really going to help you level up your Vargar very fast and be able to transition into using your darknesses against the Nexus instead of just using it as removal. So you are powerful without it, but you're really going to need that when you go up against some of the tougher opponents. So we're going to put Vargar in the A tier. Up next we have Vi, so your 3-star, grant your strongest ally 2 health and impact twice. If you have the rank 1 version of this, it's just half of this, so grant your strongest ally 1 health and impact. This is going to be stacking up. Your 2-star, +1 starting mana, game start, draw 2 cards that cost 2 or less. So quite nice to always be able to know you're going to have something to play in those first couple rounds. Now, her star power, while it can be quite helpful, it does have some issues. Since this is just going on your strongest ally, if that ally dies, suddenly all of your stacks are gone, all your impact is gone, and you feel like you can't block with that unit, or you have to be careful with blocking because, again, if they die, all those stacks are gone. Really, Vi scales much better with champion levels. That's buffing up all of her units with giving them extra items, and then also just getting relics on Vi herself is much more impactful than actually having your 3-star power. So because it's really not where most of your power is coming from, we're just going to put Vi in the C tier. Having that extra bonus is quite nice, but it's really not giving you nearly as much power as most other champions. Next, let's take a look at Yasuo. Your 3-star round start, stun the strongest enemy. Very simple and straightforward. The 1-star version of this is if you have the attack token, stun the strongest enemy. Your 2-star +1 starting mana when an ally strikes, granted 1 power. Now, Yasuo having your 3-star is quite nice, but honestly it's not too needed as the 1-cost version or the 1-star, giving you that stun on your attacking turn. When you're on the defensive and they attack you, you actually have your own spells that are able to deal with that. So looking at Steel Tempest, so this is also Yasuo's champion spell, stun a attacking enemy. Normally you're going to have many copies of this in your deck, since once your Yasuo is on the board, all copies of him will turn into this. So if you are on the defensive and they're attacking you, you have plenty of ways to stun them all. So your 3-star power, really not as needed as someone like Ashe, because you have more tools to be able to stun units on your defensive turn. Is still very nice to have, helps Yasuo scale up and level faster, so is still pretty good, but not quite as needed as someone like Ashe. So we're going to put Yasuo in the B tier. Up next we have Yumi. So Yumi, my last champion that has 2 stars. Your 1-star is allies have faded, so all of the units on the board are going to have faded. And then your 3-star is when you target an ally with faded, grant it 2/2 instead of the 1/1. So just helping you scale up a lot faster. Your 2-star, +1 starting mana, game start, summon 2 random 1-cost Poros. Now the 3-star, while it is just essentially a doubling of the effectiveness of your first star power, Yumi herself is quite a weak champion. Probably the weakest in Path of Champions, at least at the 2-star. 3-star Yumi is potentially better than 3-star Ornn, but that's because you're trying to be a very early game champion, where Ornn is trying to be late game. Now, Yumi can excel at dealing a lot of damage very early on, and you really need your 3-star to excel at that, as when you're going to be targeting those early units, they're just going to be getting more buffs. So you really are going to need your 3-star power, especially because Yumi is such a weak champion. So because of that, we're going to put Yumi up in the S tier as really needing that 3-star. That is it for this tier list. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a lot more difficult to make than I initially thought. So if you liked it, please like and subscribe. If you want any other tier lists before the next expansion comes out, comment down below. If I have time, I will make those. Hope you guys like this video, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching that video all the way to the end. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. We're putting out multiple videos every single day for Path of Champions content. So if that interests you, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and welcome to the channel. Have a great day.